Hey everybody. Today I just wanted to hop on here and talk a little bit about diet. I know that's a word that causes all sorts of a frenzy. To me, what a diet is just what you currently eat. I know that's commonly associated for other people as weight loss, or it signifies that you are participating in some sort of body recomposition. To me, that is a diet strategy when you're doing something like that. But a diet to me is just what you're currently eating. And, we currently live in the what I guess you could call, or what I call, the information age, where there is so much information circulating. We have, these smartphones in our hands that give us instant access to all of these social media websites where there's just a ton of information being thrown at us. And, for the most part, I would say most of it is probably good and accurate. There's not a lot that's necessarily bad, but there's a ton that circulates that is true, but really has no bearing to the majority of the population. However, these types of videos are like hotcakes to people because it kind of throws a wrench in what they've heard, what they know, what they've come to understand. And, sometimes it will maybe briefly explain this very obscure thing that they're dealing with, and they gravitate towards this thing, and then they start mixing it in with all this other information, and then everything gets convoluted. So I just wanted to set some things straight today, and maybe define some terms and explain some terms and offer a strategy that is rather simplistic. So again, we were talking about diet, so we can't talk about diet without discussing calories, right? And so calories is just a unit of measure for energy, and we consume calories for energy. Okay, they get that the food that we consume get converted into energy for us to use for daily skeletal function. Okay, now calories, okay, are made up of macronutrients. So I know people have heard the term macros before, and typically when I start talking about calories and macros to people, it's just face goes white, just blank stare. So, macronutrients, macros, are simply just proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And they have an assigned numerical value in relation to calories. So proteins and carbohydrates are per 1 gram in the food you consume equate to 4 calories. Fats, 9 calories per gram. Okay. So when we're talking about food, we're talking about tracking or adjusting food, right? Because if somebody comes to me and they want to lose weight, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out, well, how much should you be consuming just to maintain your body weight? Like what is base operating level? And we call that the basal metabolic rate. Okay. Anybody can go find these figures online. It doesn't take a genius to do this. You go to Google and type in BMR calculator. You would enter in your age, your height, your body weight, maybe desired body weight, and then your estimated daily activity. How vigorous the exercise that you're doing is, and it will give you your basal metabolic rate. And that's where we start in terms of where, if somebody came to me and they wanted to, lose 20 to 30 pounds, that's where we're going to start. And in my mind, right, you want to keep things simple, sensible, and sustainable. If we can construct a diet that follows those 3 principles: simple, sensible, and sustainable. Okay, not my words, by the way. If we can do that, then the process of losing weight becomes infinitely easier, because at the end of the day, what we're engaging in is behavior change. So if your current diet is all over the board, it's hit or miss, there's no structure, perhaps you consume breakfast and you're always going out to lunch with your coworkers, and it's always takeout or picking something up on the way home, you are essentially foregoing your ability to control how many calories go into your mouth. So what I tell people, right, that hey, I just want to make better decisions and hopefully lose some weight. Sensible, simple, and sustainable. It's just like, hey, cook more at home. Limit yourself to eating out twice a week. As a family, period, doesn't matter. You yourself as a family, limit those things. Don't participate if you're going to go over a second time. And realistically, what that's doing is that's giving control back to you. Now, the trade-off is there's probably more work. You have to prepare your own food then at that point, because you're not outsourcing it. But I would argue, okay, that anytime you want to make some sort of change, right, there's a sacrifice that has to be made. So it just, then the conversation comes down to like, well, how important is this to you? So, when we talk about dietary strategies, for me, what I find is somebody comes to me, they're white hot, they're excited, they're willing to do anything. And as someone who has done this for a very long time now, I know that most people can do anything for 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. Motivation is high. But when motivation subsides, okay, that's when you run into trouble. So for me to just allow someone like, yes, I'm going to put you on this very restrictive diet. I'm going to have you train 4 days a week, 5 days a week. You're going to do, some cardiovascular training. You're going to do some resistance training. And I want you on this very restrictive diet. They will be successful more often than not. The problem is all of the things that they sacrifice, okay, to be able to do that right away, immediately, eventually they have to start addressing. So maybe they're less present at home, okay? Let's just say it's a dad. He's less available because he's got to make sure that he's eating maybe different than the rest of the family, or he leaves and goes to the gym, okay? So he's less present at home. Maybe he shifts some things around and he's able to get to work a little bit later because he goes to the gym. But after a while, it's like, yeah, that doesn't work anymore. It's not going to work. So when you make all of these like really aggressive changes that are probably not going to stick, you're just setting yourself up for failure in the long run. So what I like to tell people again is like, hey, it's got to make sense. So instead of making these super aggressive changes, let's make slow, gradual changes that we can build a tolerance to. So, it's like, hey, instead of being gone, 5 days a week in the evening for bath and bedtime, right? If we're talking about a dad, it's only 2 to 3 days, and then maybe it's, hey, instead of coming in late to work one day, it's only 1 day. And then you figure out around a different type of schedule, or maybe it's like, hey, I'm not going to go to the gym and do cardio. I'm going to take my family on a walk. So to me, like, that's where someone like me, who's been doing this a long time, those are the things that I recommend. And a lot of times I get pushback from that because it's like, I feel like this isn't enough. This is not enough. And it's like, well, true, you could be doing more, but you won't be able to do more for longer than 6 weeks. Because all the things that you're putting on the back burner to commit to this, very specific goal, they have to be addressed at some point. And then it's just like, oh, so there was no integration there. There was no integration of your previous life to your current life. And it's the same with food. If I just start taking all of these foods away and I start making you eat these, relatively plain meals or simply just significantly less food, you can do it for a while until that motivation dwanes, or like something in your previous life, causes that to become a problem. And then is this really worth it? This kind of sucks, X, Y, Z. So for me, I like to just incrementally introduce changes and make it to where it's something that you can sustainably do because it's realistic. And now, you're not going to Let me just be honest with you. Unless you're meticulously tracking your food and training probably 4 to 5 days a week and, stacking with some other extracurricular things, you're not going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger as a 38-year-old dad. Okay. It's not going to happen. But, if you compound making good decisions, following a relatively good diet, your resistance training regularly, maybe you're taking your family on walks, you're trying to introduce your family to eating better quality foods, you're not eating out as much, in 2 to 3 years, you could look like a totally different person. Okay. So for me, when I talk about these things, I'm really, really careful to really explain, like, hey, let's get this. Okay. First, let's track our calories, right? Let's make sure that we're getting about 2,000 calories a day. All right. And then the next piece of that is like, let's make sure that we're eating roughly our body weight in protein. So let's prioritize protein of all the other macronutrients. Let's prioritize protein. All right. And along the way, obviously I'm offering training advice, but for me, like, we have to think of these things as simply as we can. And when we start complicating it or overcomplicating it, that's where things go awry. So people come to me all the time, like, my weight didn't move. Okay. When was the last time you weighed? Tuesday. It's Thursday. What do you mean your weight didn't move? Who cares? You know what I'm saying? It's like, whoa. Like, let's pump the brakes here. So, when I talk about these things with people, I think I turn a lot of people off because they're wanting some, like, wizardly thing that I'm offering. And all I'm going to do is what I know works best, which is create something that is very simple and something that is sustainable. Also sensible, right? Because if I'm having you eat all these very obscure foods, knowing that you have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old in the house, I'm setting you up for failure. Like, you can do it because you're motivated. Your 10-year-old, your 5-year-old, they're not motivated at all. They don't care about any of that. They want to watch Paw Patrol and Teen Titans. So, I like to set things up and I like to explain things at a base level. And I try not to deviate from that too much because realistically, we are consuming content that tends to overcomplicate it. And then we ourselves want to make it complicated too. And we just have to stop doing that. We have to go back to the basics. Okay. We have to go to the very simple executable functions of, like, let's track our calories. Let's see what happens. Let's introduce some form of exercise, preferably resistance training. Let's see what happens. And then we'll make adjustments from there. So I wanted to hop on here, talk a little bit about that, explain some things, maybe offer, maybe more than anything, if you take, something away from this video, it's just simply put, okay, that sometimes what you're seeing on social media, all of these very just obscure things, it's like, this is why you're not losing weight. It's probably not that. Certainly could be. It applies to a certain percent of the population, but reality is you're probably just not doing the simple things as effectively as you could, and you're overcomplicating it. So anyway, I will be posting more videos like this. I'll be posting more videos where I discuss or break things down at a level that hopefully everyone can understand and maybe relate to, and just trying to offer, advice that is simple and effective. That's what I'm after here. And maybe educating you in the process about things that are confusing or that you just simply don't understand or don't know. All right. Have a good day.